Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Copper Club podcast, sponsored by Player Stats. I'll be your host, Nathan Joyce, and I'm delighted to be joined by Albert Hilton for an Argentinian special. We've been giving plenty of love to Brazil, as always, but look, there's plenty of other leagues in South America, so we will be focusing on the Argentinian league this time round. Albert, long time no speak, my friends. How are we doing?
Yeah, I'm all good. All good. Thanks for having me on again. It's good to be back for the new year.
And I know we're doing an Argentinian episode, and for those watching on YouTube, Albert is sporting a Santos Neymar shirt. So I know we wanted to keep this to an Argentinian episode, but we can't not talk about, first and foremost, a few minutes around Neymar returning to Santos. It's something which we've probably hoped for a very long period of time. We see a lot of South American players come back to the respective league, but a big player like Neymar, was he maybe that injury at Al Hilal, which sort of helped sort of this move come across? I don't know, but either way, it's happened. We don't know whether it's going to be long term, whether he's going to come back to Europe. But what we do know at the moment is going to spend at least 5-6 months with Santos, who have been through hell and back of late, really, and only just been promoted back from Serie B to Serie A. It's going to be very interesting to see. I'm very excited about the announcement. I've already seen a snippet of the video where there's already a throne on the middle of the pitch. Not quite Arturo. Did you see Arturo Vidal's return to Colo Colo, the helicopter? There was talks of that. I don't know if that is going to still happen. It wouldn't surprise me. It's peak South America. But look, Albert, Neymar is back, and we can get excited about it, obviously, but it's so big for South American, Brazilian football for him to come back, and hopefully that keeps a few players wanting to join, not just Santos, but the league as a whole.
Yeah, I think really that's where Brazil is so ahead in South America, getting these big names in. I've seen a video of him and Memphis Depay on FaceTime as well. Like Memphis Depay welcoming Neymar back to Brazil.
Imagine
and also,
saying that 6 months ago, by the
I
way,
know
like unreal.
it's unbelievable. But Neymar back to Brazil for however long it's going to be is massive. It is absolutely massive. And for him to go back to Santos as well, it's because I remember there was talk of him going to potentially Flamengo, but for him to go back to Santos, it makes it especially special. Especially with them just coming up as well from the Serie B. It's amazing, and it's amazing for South American football as a whole.
And I think they just needed it. I wrote an article for issue 3 for the Copper Club magazine around Santos and the stories behind the scenes which led to their relegation. Almost the angle of the article was more about how once they sold Neymar, the money they utilized there almost cost them any success and why they ended up in Serie B, which is mad. So if you haven't read it, it is online. Do check it out. But he's returning as they've come up. And look, David Washington is joining back from Chelsea on loan, and that was a key part. I think I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but there was one or two players who were looking at an exit from Santos and trying to move up the ladder. But with the announcement of Neymar, they've all gone, nope, I'm staying. But it's the pull, right? This league is already getting big players. I did a list on Twitter the other night when I first sort of saw a nice collection. I thought I need to let the people know, look, Brazil is back. But yeah, I think you said it right there in terms of how Brazil is so far ahead. But that is down to investment, and we're going to segue a little bit later on in the podcast about investment with a certain team in Argentina, which is causing a bit of a stir at the moment. But yes, Neymar back for 5 to 6 months, where he can take Santos. And for me, it's all about preparing him for his last ever World Cup. And look at Lionel Messi with his last ever World Cup and what happened there. So for me, it'd be brilliant to see that Brazil sort of claim another title. And I think it's, for people who haven't kept an eye on Neymar's journey and have seen across social media that, yes, he earned all this money in Saudi Arabia and played, two league games, 2 or 3 appearances in the AFC Champions League. But that cruciate ligament tear he suffered for Brazil against Uruguay, which kept him out for over 340 days. And for him to recover and want to sort of spark that back at Santos, I think mentally that's best for him. I don't know, Albert, if you saw did you watch the Saudi Pro League documentary on Netflix, or
No,
have you
I've not seen.
bypassed that? Well, on
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
I was just more intrigued from a Neymar point of view because I know he was out injured the whole time, and like the mental toll it was taking on him. Like everyone would be like, "Oh yeah, but he can do what he wants. He's basically a multi-millionaire, etc., etc." But like he wants to still play football and like win titles. And I think like his infatuation with Santos and what he thinks feels like he still owes the club for him to that this may never have happened if he didn't have had that horrendous injury. And I think he would have been a huge success in Saudi. Obviously, he would have dominated that. But thankfully, he's actually recovered another huge injury because let's not forget, this wasn't his first big one. And to go to Santos for 5 to 6 months, hopefully gives them sort of a chance at Libertadores football. There's always a top 6, 7 spot, leaves them there. That would be a nice story for Santos. And yeah, where he goes next, I've seen rumours about the links to Europe to get fit and ready, or like show that he's still world class, which he is, before going to the World Cup. Like it'd be a beautiful story and very similar to Messi winning it in Qatar. So look, we've given 5-6 minutes to Neymar there, deservedly so, but we will stick to our promise that this is an Argentinian podcast. And this next part may be a little bit sporadic. I think Albert and I are still trying to get our heads around exactly what's happened. And before we start looking at Boca and River and what they're doing, because they're spending quite a lot of money, well, there's another team, I say another team spending the money, whether it's actually this team
yeah.
or an investment opportunity, which is the link from earlier, is Estudiantes. Phew. Albert, how do we even kickstart this? Because look, we know, and we've spoken on the podcast before, we know there's not nowhere near as much money in Argentinian football, especially compared to Brazil. There's been a lack of investment, or not clubs not wanting to basically sell out and become these corporations, so to speak. But a certain Foster Gillett, we're going to, Foster Gillett, we're happy
We'll
with
go
that.
with
We'll
Gillette.
go with that. We'll go Mr. Foster Gillett, who Liverpool fans will probably wince at hearing this, having been a former director at the club. When was that? 2007,
Yeah,
2010, in that
2000.
era? And obviously that didn't end particularly well when his dad took over. But Albert, should I think I'm going to hang the microphone over to you for this bit, because you might be able to give it a bit more clarity, because there's a lot going on there, but they are spending big money, but it's not the club, is it? This is why we brought up Mr. Gillett. So over to you.
So to really like understand the situation, you have to go back to Javier Milei being elected president in Argentina last year, where he decided that teams will have the option of private ownership. And with that, there has come some interest for some clubs, massive opposition to it, obviously, from the fans. But Foster Gillett came in, and he's not come in to buy a club. He's worked an agreement with Juan Sebastian Veron, who is the president of Estudiantes, and what he's doing is, I don't want to say anything, too much, but whether it's completely above board is questionable, because in Argentina you can't sell a player directly to an investor, which is what a lot of people have accused him of doing, especially with this Christian Medina deal from Boca Juniors to Estudiantes. The deal nearly fell through because the law, the regulators said that the money wasn't coming from Estudiantes, it was coming from Foster Gillett, which isn't allowed. So then Medina had to pay his own resignation for 15 million US dollars. Where that 15 million US dollars came from, I'm not sure.
I think we know, don't we?
Medina. Yeah. And he's worked his way to Estudiantes. And Foster Gillett has been the talk of the transfer window in Argentina, him alone. You've got Christian Medina, who's gone from Boca to Estudiantes.
And
He's
let's
also
actually focus on that first. Sorry to cut you off, Al, but just for a bit more context for people who don't know who he is, Medina, a 23, 24 now, I might have that wrong, from Boca, previously linked with moves to Europe. I think obviously no shock to say that Saudi were sniffing around at one point as well. But look, highly promising, another product from the Boca Academy. And I know some people may be listening to this and saying, oh, 14, 15 million euros, I think the deal was. But for a team, for an Argentinian side to spend that on another Argentinian player in that league is very, very unheard of, which is obviously why so many people are talking about this. And as you explained there very well, that the transfer nearly did sort of collapse because, as you said, the money was handed over from Foster Gillett to the club basically in order to bring him in, because there's no way a club like Estudiantes would have that sort of money to spend on a player. It just doesn't happen. It's a lot of money even for Brazilian football, even though all the big players are still going across to there. So just added a bit more context around that. But look, there's another list of players. I'll let you continue.
so Foster Gillett has been involved heavily with Estudiantes, who have brought in 5 or 6 players, but Medina being the one of real, notice. But second to him, they've brought in Lucas Alario, who was at Internacional in Brazil, and he's been a good striker over the years. So he'll be looking to kick on at Estudiantes, even though he's quite old. But as well, the past few days, there's been another 2 really big stories come out. One of those is Rodrigo Vichagra from River Plate. They bought him from Talleres only last February
Yeah.
for about 12 million US dollars.
Yeah,
And
so
now
what was that, about 6 million euros, £5 million? Big deal, right?
big money, big money. I think he's like he was River's, I think, third all-time most expensive signing. It's
Madness.
not worked out for him at River at all.
Mm-hmm.
Gallardo has basically cast him aside, and he's been bought out by Foster Gillett. So what's
Yeah,
happened
not
there? Not
Estudiantes.
anyone. No, and he's not. He's. It's not even been confirmed that he'll go to Estudiantes now. He's been bought out by Foster Gillett, and now he's kind of in this limbo where he's going to play, whether that be Estudiantes or potentially Vélez Sarsfield. I'm not sure where the connection between Foster Gillett and Vélez has come from. There's not really been any talk about him
Yeah.
having the same sort of deal that he's got at Estudiantes with Vélez, but he's looking to put Vichagra into a club in Argentina. I think that will be resolved in the next few days. So potentially by the time this podcast comes out, he'll be announced at
Yeah.
Estudiantes, which is probably the most likely
Yeah,
destination.
but like the fact that there's hesitancy there from a club where he is working with, and as you said, Juan Sebastian Veron has been very open about this relationship, even though fans are very, I don't even want to say 50-50 because I'm not sure what the percentage is. I'm sure 100% are very worried about where this could end up. But yeah, he's took on the player to presumably put him into Estudiantes, and it hasn't happened straight away. And the fact that he's turned towards Velez, who, as far as I'm aware, do not have this sort of money, it's just so unheard of for an investor to come in, support, quote unquote, a football club, but he owns the players. They're all doing it sort of appearingly backhanded is the only way to describe it, but still legal, because I don't think the Argentinian league probably has rules or regulations in place for this. It may do, but it's just such a complex way. They'll find ways around it. But straight away, if you're talking about a player there for how much did they buy him for? I know River bought him for 6 million, but I think now they're looking at 12 million euros to sort of sell
Yeah,
him on, or what he's bought it, or Gillette's bought him for as well. So you think about that. That's 26 million on 2 players, and they've bought others as well, which we don't really have time to go through all of these. But say he's already spent 30 plus million on buying the players which he owns, and then like you said, apart from Medina, but there's that limbo of where these players even go. Has he Has he bought them? And
Yeah.
they may not have a club. Isn't that a bit modern day slavery? I don't know. It's really
It's odd.
bizarre, isn't it? So he's trying to. It's not like it's really hard to grasp. And even as us two here have gone through it and researched and read the articles, like it's really confusing as to seeing where this is going to go. And there's a really good article. I've got it in front of me here just for a bit more context on what Veron's saying, because he was interviewed about this and he's come out and said that, which is even more confusing, that Gillett will have a say in the footballing decisions at the club. So he's buying players which he owns and he's trying to get them through the back door at Estudiantes and make them into a bit more of a powerhouse. But then Veron's saying, well, if this is going to happen, I've accepted that this US investor who previously tried to buy Leon before John Textor, which didn't work out. Derby County I read last year, however legit that is, and that didn't go through. And now he's decided to not buy clubs, but almost give handouts to Estudiantes. I mean, you're an investor, clues in the name, but he's not going to be getting anything really back from this. And Veron's come out and said, we don't know if this partnership will last 20 years or 100, which I think is really bizarre, right? Because that's still it's either 2 decades or forever, like as long as the football clubs existed, which is particularly odd. And he said the deal will start around 150 to 160 million US dollars. But what it goes on in the next couple of paragraphs to be like, oh, the club president has been criticised for the lack of clarity, because I'm thinking, well, he's come out to the media and he's happy to say there's 150 to 160 million dollars involved, but what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been very interesting to follow. I think even the listeners, I hope we haven't confused you too much, but do go and do your own reading and check this out, because it's not going away anytime soon. But everything Gillett has seemed to touch within football has sort of turned to shit, really. I think that's the only way to describe it at the moment. So it'd be really interesting to see where this goes, but it's odd to sort of tap into an Argentinian market where he knows he's not going to make money from it. Whether he's trying to compete with the likes of River and Boca long term, I'm not sure if this is the right way to go about it, especially as you said there with the River defender, in terms of, well, he may not go to Estudiantes even though he bought them for double the money for that, and he may be going to Vélez. How that works out, I'm not really sure, but hopefully I've not confused too many people. Albert, have you got anything else you want to touch on this ridiculous situation?
I do.
Of course, there's more layers. Go on then, we'll have another one.
So another saga of, well, the Argentinian summer, our winter transfer window, has been former Vélez captain Valentin Gomez, and where he's going to end up. It was potentially Leicester. There was rumours of him going to Leicester. Those died down pretty quickly. And then he was ridiculously close to joining Cruzeiro in Brazil. That fell away because I believe Cruzeiro tried to take advantage of Vélez's financial situation. They agreed on 10 million, realised Vélez need the money, tried to drop it down to 8 million. They said, no, we're not doing that, which upset Gomez further because he wanted to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's on his way to Udinese because of Foster Gillett.
Man of the hour, just doing what he wants.
Apparently, he's bought Gomez out of his contract with Vélez, and he's sent him somehow, I'm not sure how, where his connections are in Italy, but he's been sent over to Udinese for 18 months, I believe.
What? Like,
Yeah.
the star centre-back from out of Argentina last season obviously helped Vélez pick up the title. The Cruzeiro link made sense. Maybe that's a poor move from the Brazilians trying to edge out a couple of million here and there, but they're building a powerhouse team at the moment.
Yeah.
And that made sense because they've brought Fabrizio Bruno in, and what a centre-back partnership that could have been for the 2025 campaign. But obviously that's not happened. Yeah, I'm very much like you. You're closer to it than I am. But the fact that I'm just thinking, I know he's got money and money makes the world go round, and like people, money talks. But how he's managed to convince like the best, because he's only 21, like huge links. Leicester may not be doing that well, but Premier League side, to go, and then all of a sudden put all your faith and trust into somebody who's not a football agent, who's not a football owner, not a director, chairman, whatever this is. But it must be saying something to convince them, because it's happened. And look, at least he's made his way across to Europe, but the right way, question marks around it. Do Udinese want him? Does the manager want him? How does he fit into his plans? Doesn't feel like the players' interests are best at heart, if that makes sense, with this particular one. So Foster Gillett, he's just having football manager. It's like football manager / Sims, isn't it? It's the only way to sort of describe this situation.
It's borderline a mockery of the Argentinian league. Sending Medina from Boca to Estudiantes for 15 million. Boca were rubbing their hands at 15 million.
Yeah,
it's beyond silly. That's the bottom line. And as well, just another quick one from Foster Gillett. He's trying to send Hernan Lopez Munoz, who was brilliant at Godoy Cruz, has since gone over to New England Revolution in the MLS, and Foster Gillett's trying to convince him to come back to Argentina and sign for either Estudiantes or Vélez. Whether that will happen, I'm not sure. There's been a lot of talk, and it seems to be with any transfer that's gone on in Argentina, his name is in and around it. So I'm not sure about that one.
Football fans and stat lovers, listen up. If you're serious about understanding the game and digging deeper into the numbers, you've got to check out Player Stats. It's the ultimate platform for both football stats and player data. With Player Stats, you can see every stat at a glance, so there's no more clicking or digging around. Whether you're tracking player performances, team stats, or just want to explore detailed player props, Player Stats makes it simple, fast, and comprehensive. And here's the best part. As a listener of this podcast, you can get 20% off your first month when you sign up with the code COPPER. That's right, full access to all leagues, players, and stats, now at an exclusive discount. Head over to playerstats.football, use the code COPPER, and start exploring today. Loads to follow there. We'll either do another update on this throughout the season's only just kicked off, right? So we'll keep close tabs on Estudiantes and what's going on behind the scenes, and we'll either do another podcast or an online feature about that. So do subscribe to the website to make sure you get that landing into your email box for free. But look, let's move on to the two biggest sides in Argentina who, well, disappointed last season, and both of them have recognised that and gone out and spent an awful lot of money. Of course, I'm talking about Boca and River Plate. We'll start with Boca, who have brought in, obviously they've had money to spend after that Medina deal, but they've gone in and spent an awful lot of money, 20 million plus at least on transfers, and that's euros. But probably the biggest name is former Man United Andre Herrera, who should have got sent off on his debut for a nasty tackle, but the referee was never going to send him off at La Bombonera. But look, Herrera, what a huge signing for we spoke at the start for Neymar, and obviously it's nowhere near on that level, but for Argentinian football and for Boca was a very exciting deal. But a long list of players, the two of the standout ones, probably Carlos Palacios from Colo Colo for around 5 million euros, and Alan Velasco, who has returned, former Independiente player, went across to the MLS, got a serious injury, and then sort of like found his way back. But look, he's been convinced to come across to this Boca project. 10 million. So obviously we've given context as to how much money that is in Argentinian football, but yeah, 10 million half of the 20 million they spent, and obviously Herrera's wages, etc. An awful lot of money. First couple of games of the season have been really, really unconvincing with a couple of boring draws. But Boca needed to do something, didn't they? And do you think they've gone about it the right way, Albert, or do you think there still needs more investment for this to work?
I think they've done well. I think they've actually done really well in their signings. I think Carlos Palacios is a great signing, and out of all of them that they've made, I think he'll probably come up to be the one that people will look back on at the end of the year and say, yeah, that was a really good signing. Less so Herrera. It gives a bit of Daniel De Rossi, when he came over to Argentina, he was quite injury prone. Herrera's already injured. Um, we'll see how that works out. But as well, they've signed Marchesin from Gremio, the goalkeeper, which is an area they really needed to look at because, Sergio Romero, last year he made quite a few errors. And I think that this new goalkeeper will probably improve them there. And Battaglia from Mineiro, I think that's another good, smart signing in centre back.
Yeah, fairly cheap, 1.5
Yeah,
million. Yeah,
yeah, he's a very experienced player. Got to the Libertadores final last year, and Boca need these players with personality because to play for Boca, you have to have personality, and it has been lacking. It's really been lacking in their midfield, especially with Paul Fernandez. He's not the player he once was. And there's been rumours again of Leandro Paredes coming back to La Boca, but I think that one will have to wait for summer. I think as of right now, I can't see that happening. But I think Boca's signings, there has been quite a few of them, and I think they've gone about it in a decent way. I know we're going to touch on River, but I want to say that I think out of the two clubs, I think Boca have slightly edged River.
yeah, I'm really excited to see more of Alan Velasco. He went at the MLS with high hopes, and like I can't remember exactly what his injury was off the top of my head now, but put him out for a fair few months, and then like he only just started to find his feet there. But for some reason, it wasn't working out, and I think Boca, an opportunity to go back to Boca where they're spending money and were able to pay for his wages was obviously a huge opportunity for him, and it's almost a I don't know. Sometimes I think Boca's just a bigger stage. I know the MLS is growing massively, but when a lot of these players go across, I mean, if they're not standout contenders to move directly across to Europe, they're almost forgotten about. And even how Boca over the years, I know they got to the Libertadores final a couple of years ago, but they've been terrible for a number of years now. But they still produce talent, and people are always looking at them. So if he turns up and does particularly well, like helping out Cavani, who won't be able to do it forever, he had a great year last year. But I think it's a really smart signing. It's a lot of money, like 10 million euros. It has to work. But he proved that before with Independiente. So I think he's going to be a real key player for them. And hopefully he can keep fit and recover from that long-term injury. But yeah, let's talk about River, who've also spent quite a bit of money, but they needed to. And I think we saw that last season, especially in the Libertadores, when they went toe to toe with the Brazilian clubs, and Mineiro just made them look so stupid. Like it was very easy for them that first leg 3-0 win, and then to go back to El Monumental, and that went viral across social media how the fans got everybody going, and then the game just didn't live up to expectations and was 0-0 because it doesn't matter how many fans you've got behind you, if there's not quality on the pitch in numbers, there's always going to favour the Brazilians, and we're seeing that in the Copa Libertadores. So the reason why I'm quite excited and hopeful for these teams is now they're spending a bit of money. We can hopefully just close that gap and make the Libertadores what it was 5-6 years ago, okay, before this Brazilian dominance. But look, over to you, Albert. Talk us through Rivers players, because I'm not going to talk too much about Gonzalo Montiel. Like, it's a nice story for him to go back there, but obviously didn't work out as he'd hoped in Europe, especially with Forest. Anyway, that's what I'm going to probably lean on a little bit more. But for him to go back there, I think they spent quite big money on him from Seville, around about 4 million euros, which
I've got 4.5.
yeah, I was quite surprised. It's quite a chunky fee. But look, he'll improve them. But a couple of others, haven't there? I'll pass the microphone over to you to talk about them, because also like Boca, they spent over 20 million euros this market, but desperately needed.
Yeah, and River Plate's transfer window's been a bit of a strange one. It seems as if Gallardo is trying to get the band back together. He signed over this last year. He signed Pezzella, who's a former River Plate player. Acuna's not former River Plate, but he's a world champion. It's a good signing. And then they've signed Montiel, obviously came through at River. Martinez Cuarta from Fiorentina. That was a hefty fee as well, about 7 million.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a really good signing. So they've got this really strong back four of players who know the club, know the league, are very good standard for the Argentinian league. Going forward, they re-signed Enzo Perez from Estudiantes. He's obviously got a great relationship with Gallardo. I'm sure he's a really big help in the dressing room. On the field, I'm not so sure what he'll be up to nowadays. Matias Rojas, they've signed him from Inter Miami. He was brilliant at Racing. I believe he went to Corinthians, didn't do very well, got shipped off to Inter Miami. I couldn't say how he did in the MLS. He didn't set it on fire, and he's come on a free transfer, which is good business for River to get him on a free. But one player who I'll be looking at as someone to try and boost their attack is Sebastian Driussi, and he's coming from Austin, and he's another former River Plate player. He won the Libertadores with them in 2015. He's starting to get on a bit now, but last season he played 30 games in the MLS, 8 goals, 4 assists. It's not too bad for a central attacking midfielder. And I think with time and support, I think he'll come good in Argentina again. Obviously, River Plate is a massive stage, and in all honesty, they probably could have done with signing a striker. I know they've got Borja and Colidio, but Borja's I don't know, he's touch and go.
He's hit and miss, isn't he? I think sometimes as you're writing him off as he goes through a 5 or 6 game goal drought, he'll come and score a brace.
Yeah.
But he was the only one. If he didn't turn up or if he wasn't getting the opportunities, let's flip it around the other way, because like River's build-up play last year was very slow and lethargic and boring with the teams they should have comfortably beaten at home. So if Boy wasn't getting any service, I think it's a little bit harsh on him. But I appreciate it, because sometimes when he misses is a bit more evident, because all of River's chances sort of go through him in that 4-5-1 formation that they play. But I agree with you there. But look, 10 million on Driussi is, I know he's going back to his former club, but it's big money, isn't it? Again,
it is big money. It is really big money. And I was quite surprised at a 10 million transfer fee for him. But he's done it before at River, and this seems to be Gallardo's mentality, saying, "Well, we've done it once, so let's try and recreate it."
Yeah.
They've got a back four of like 3 world champions, actually 4. Sorry, Montiel, Pesela, Armani is technically a world champion.
Counts. He'll count it, right? Yeah, but that's a lot. That's a solid back four. Yeah. But I don't think that was River's problems last season. It was knowing how to get through teams. It was their problems in the Libertadores against Brazilian clubs, etc. But at home, it was just they didn't know how to break down teams who would just happily go and put 8, 9, 10 men behind the ball. So it's an interesting signing. I do really like the Matias Rojas signing. I don't know why it didn't work out at Corinthians. I think he joined them at a bad time. Like there's a lot of transition period there, and then he did well into Miami, and he is a sort of player who can potentially unlock defenses. He's got an unbelievable left peg on him, like very good with set pieces. Maybe he's going to be the one to unlock Driussi or Boya, and that's going to be the difference. But it can't just be him. But yeah, look, he was quality at Racing, and then the move to Corinthians was seen as a step up. But 1 or 2 assists I'm looking at now from 26 appearances. It just didn't work out for whatever reason. But look, that can happen when you move countries or leagues, right? It doesn't always translate. So him coming back to Argentina for a team which are going to dominate the ball at El Monumental, big pitch, offers him an opportunity there. So look, some really exciting signings. I know you said there that you thought Boca had signed the better players out of them in River, but I think they got close to Sergio Ramos, right? He's gone to Mexico now, which is I can't remember the club.
Di Michelis as well, which is mental. Martin Di Michelis is who they signed. I forgot the name. But yeah, Ramos has gone to play for Di Michelis in Mexico, which is quite random.
It was out of all the clubs.
It seems to be a transfer window of absolutely just random transfers. And obviously, talking of random transfers, the most random of them all, probably Keylor Navas to Newell's, a team who are struggling on and off the pitch. And Keylor Navas, without really any connection to
Yeah,
Argentina,
it was
especially
random.
to Newell's, very, very random. But touching back on River, I just want to mention that they've signed a lot of experience, and I think that that will really help bring through a lot of good young talent that they have. Because obviously now they're going to be missing Echeverri, who's gone to City,
Mm,
but they've got the likes of Mastantuono, um,
so good.
Roberto.
So
Yeah,
good.
Mastantuono is a top. Well, he's going to be a top player. Roberto, who scores goals for fun in the under 20s Argentinian national team, who deserves a chance, honestly, in
Yeah.
Rivers'
Yeah.
first team.
I'm surprised he didn't get it last year. I really am. I thought
Yeah,
he
a
was
lot
going
of
to be a
people were.
player.
And as well, they've got another youngster, Subiabre, I believe his name is. He is one to watch, I think, for this season. And he's a winger, dynamic, brilliant at youth level. So River, that's what they've got over Boca, I'd say, is the players that they're bringing through mixed with these experience transfers. I think that could come to be a really good mix of youth and experience.
Plenty going on. And Sergio Ramos is off to Monterrey. And he's going to be
Oh,
wearing the number 90. I know he's stepping out of South America, but why not, right? Sergio Ramos, he's going to be wearing the number 93 shirt in tribute to his goal in the Champions League in 2014 against Atletico, apparently.
amazing.
He, of course he's going to do that. Oh, even towards the end of his career, he's just rubbing it in. But I think he screamed Boca because obviously we're seeing Marcos Rojo there. I thought it would have been happening, but it isn't. But he's still coming across to, well, the other side of the world in Mexico. Like, it's nice to see something completely different. But look, a couple of highlights from this show in terms of Neymar is on his way back to Santos. Brilliant. Estudiantes are doing the dodgiest deals through Foster Gillett. One to keep an eye on. Boca and River are not only trying to get back on top in Argentina, but hopefully River can start competing in the Brazilian league. Keylor Navas is in Argentina with Newell's Old Boys. No idea why that's happened. I still can't believe he even went to Nottingham Forest. So I thought that was going to be peak for him, but no, look, he's in Argentina to see it out. Maybe because it's closer to home, right? Maybe that was a
Yeah,
potential reason, but it's the only one I can think of. And look, we haven't even really touched on Velez, who but mainly you touched on there with Valentin Gomez and him moving across to Europe through the back door via Gillett for whatever particular reason. But loads of stuff going on in South America as always. We're going to try and cover a few more countries and see what happens over the next few months. We'll be trying to do our podcast every couple of weeks. I apologize that January has been a little bit slower. Life does get in the way at times, and the transfer window outside of South America has been surprisingly quiet. But look, next month the Libertadores qualifiers continue. Brazilian League is back as of March. Argentinian League has started now, which you can watch in the UK through Fanatiz. It's only a handful of euros or dollars or whatever you want to pay a month. I don't know why I went with that, but that is back, and you can watch highlights, full games, everything. So no excuses to get involved with a new league, and that's one way you can keep an eye on Estudiantes and all these new signings we've spoken about. But look, Albert, I really appreciate you coming on. I'm sure we'll talk about Argentinian football very soon.
yeah. Thank you for having me as always. I've been looking forward to the next one, see where Estudiantes are at with their their transfers.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll sign off with another thank you for our sponsors, Player Stats. If you have listened to the full episodes, you will find a 20% discount code. If you've skipped through, then you've missed out on that. So you have to go back and try and find that at some point during the podcast. But until then, stay safe, people, and we'll talk to you very soon.